with, and it's
Okay, we gotta
Okay.
behave ourselves now, folks.
okay.
All right.
Anyways, he had a phenomenal, of course, he
Yep.
was all about the fishing.
Yep, yep,
That's
it's
great. I
a,
thought I saw a picture of them on Facebook.
yeah, it's a remarkable
It is.
remarkable place.
It
Okay, I
certainly is.
believe, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
We can, and we can see you actually.
Okay,
At least I can.
doesn't seem to be, it's recording.
Yes, it told us that it is recording. It did notify
Yeah,
us.
we're good. Okay, so why don't I start again, Beth? Let's call ourselves to order at 3:07, August 8th, 2022. Winnebago County Aging and Disability Resource Committee meeting. I see that, do we have any members of the public in attendance? I don't think so. Okay, I know that, thanks, Beth, there you go. And do we have any comments about the meeting minutes? I know we already got one from Liz.
Oh, I don't need to repeat it then if that's the
Okay.
case. So,
Okay,
or well, does it need to be on the
yeah,
record?
please.
Okay, so I just had one note on the meeting minutes in the area that was discussing the survey of caregivers. It under clients, it says on average, the agencies turn away 10.5 clients per month. I was just going to suggest that there be some clarification notation that shows that that's 10.5 average per agency, not a grand total of 10.5, because I think that's a significant difference. So.
That's my understanding as well, Beth, that it was per agency. Which is a huge
A
number.
lot. Yeah.
Any other comments or suggestions about the meeting minutes from June 13th? Nothing in the room there, Beth?
No, I don't see anything in the room, but I also
Okay.
don't think that the owl's working. It should show me.
Okay,
Oh, let's test this. If I'm talking, will it read?
Uh-uh,
No,
it's not.
you want to turn your blur background off? I can do that. So that where it says blur.
there you go. Looks like something.
It's
just
still
changed.
blurred. The background is still blurred.
Come back on here.
Oh. We're back to the mugshot.
Your avatar
Still here.
showing.
Oh. And technology can work, right?
Oh, well, that's
Now we've
better.
got Beth back.
Yeah,
Beth, you may need to, oh, there we go. The blur just stopped.
okay. So
But that's
let's, I'm looking for a motion to approve the meeting minutes as amended.
Move, Mr. Chairman, Mike Norton.
Thank you. All those in favor by signifying aye.
Aye.
Okay. Motion or minutes are approved as amended. Mike, you have some comments about the a presentation to the county board on September 6th. Take it away, please.
Oh, I just wanted to point out or make a comment that the housing study, the senior housing study that we had done will be made a presentation to the Winnebago County Board at the September 6th county board meeting. So if anybody wants to show up, I think Beth said she'd be there. Paul may or may not be there. And then what's the doctor, right? His name?
Yes, Jeremy Bourne.
And he'll be there as well. So 15-20 presentation. So this is our initial presentation to the county board to try to get some movement on increasing the number of senior units in the next 10 years.
Mike, I will likely, and Beth, I will likely not be there. I'm gonna be recovering from surgery, so.
Repeat that date and time again.
It'll be on Tuesday, December 6th, at the Winnebago County Courthouse, 4th floor. Approximately 6 p.m. is when the meeting starts. It will be one of the first ones on the agenda. I believe we'll have a 15 to 20 minutes of presentation, followed by any questions from the county board. And if you have any questions, you can make a comment during public comments before the meeting, or before he makes his presentation.
And that's Tuesday, September 6th, you said, right?
Tuesday, September 6th, 6 p.m. In the 4th floor of the county courthouse. And I think sometimes it's televised on various cable channels if you're interested. I did provide Beth and Mike a draft one-pager of what I thought were some of the key points that the folks from UW Oshkosh were going to make. So folks in the county board and elsewhere can look it up. Beth, if you'd be kind enough to get that out to the committee members beforehand, that would be appreciated. I think she's having trouble. Any other questions, Mike?
Mike, I just want to say thank you. That is an excellent next step. I couldn't think of anything better to do with that information. It's a perfect launching pad. Thank you.
Next agenda item, Nicole, do you want to give us your invitation to your open house on August 16th, please? I can't, I see you, Nicole, but I can't hear you. Okay. We're having technical troubles, looks like.
That better? Can you hear me now?
Much better, thank you.
Okay, perfect. So Tuesday, August 16th, it is from 10 to 2. And we will be having presentations by our ADRC staff, along with public health and veteran services at 11, 12, and 1, just very short presentations. And each one of our presenters are going to be making a berry themed treat, and there's going to be a competition. So each table will have a treat that you're able to try and vote for the best one. We're going to be having raffle baskets for people to put in for things that they might like. And then the Brewing Futures food truck will be outside from 10 to 12. Right out front of our building, and they are going to have berry themed treat items too that they're going to be selling to team with us on this. And so it's just going to be a really fun event that our staff has been planning now for about 2 months, and we're doing it with zero budget. All of our staff are putting in their time, money, items and things for all of the baskets to try to bring the community in and just show them that we're a very fun group of people, and they can come in here and we can help them without it being so intimidating. So we're going to try to make it as welcoming and fun and exciting as possible. So we'd love to see everyone.
The event is posted on our Facebook page. I will be sending out the flyer after this meeting. And then I do have a couple of printed out ones for those of you who are here that want to take one instead of utilizing the email.
Any other questions or comments for Nicole? Alyssa, if you're there, take it away with dementia care.
Okay, sounds good. So one of the exciting things that we have going on is we have the license to the virtual dementia tour. So we are able to have the simulation of what it feels like to have dementia. And we have, myself and Nicole are facilitators, and we're recruiting some team members so that we can have events, in the community and here in our building and elsewhere, so that we can provide more awareness and empathy so people can understand what it feels like to have dementia. It's a license that we have for 2 years, so it's going to become a part of, you know, when I do dementia awareness training and talk about our resources and programs. It'll be an add-on to that so that people can kind of have what that experience feels like. So we're really excited about that.
Just on a side note with that, if you think you might want to at some point, once we figure out what we're doing and have more structure to it, be a volunteer so that when we're having an event, you might be someone who hands out some of the supplies to participants or just helps organize who's going where when we have an event. Keep that in mind and let me know. We're going to need some volunteers every time we do an event. So just keep that in mind.
Well, I just finished the training on it, and the really exciting thing about it is that going into it, you take a survey and you say like how you're feeling, and then once you go through the experience of having dementia, there's a really good debrief and a really good community experience of talking about how that felt. And both Elisa and I really have to like learn how to take what people are saying and say, okay, well, that you felt this way prior to coming in, you didn't feel that way. And this is what it feels like to have dementia. This is why you're wearing the gloves, so that your tactile senses are impacted. This is why people get frustrated. Like, so there's like a behavior person that's actually in the room that's like documenting the behaviors that they're seeing from a normal person and really talking about, so you exhibited these behaviors, like how did that feel? Why were you getting frustrated? Now, what can you do differently when you're dealing with someone with dementia? So it's not just an experience, but it's a really good learning experience. So people, like for caregivers, for people working in the nursing homes, I didn't really know that much about it until I started doing the trainings, and I feel like it was very eye-opening to really understand just from watching the trainings of like what it actually feels like. So I think it'll be really exciting once we get going.
So you're looking for volunteers. These volunteers you do as trainings that Nicole talked about to start doing this, right? Am I correct?
No, Lisa and I would train the volunteers, because we would have the volunteers do like in the beginning, like helping people, it's called garbing. So like you would help them put on the gloves and put inserts into their shoes and things like that. So we would have the volunteers kind of doing some of the basic things, where Lisa and I would take on like the more difficult.
If you could write up some kind of a general thing to get the attention or to attract volunteers, I mean, I would be willing to spread that to different places and people I know. Because people are gonna ask me, what do they expect? What do you expect from
Sure.
being a volunteer? And secondly, what kind of people are working with or dealing with? I mean, it's one thing to, you can volunteer wheelchair washer, washing wheelchair, you can volunteer at a gesture thing or something, selling, taking money. That's why I'm.
Thank you.
Getting there.
Yeah, Elisa and I talked about, once we have some footing and we know what we're doing and what exactly those volunteers need to do, we would write it up and we can share it with you. We were gonna put it on the United Way volunteer site, and we just need to figure it out for ourselves first so that we can write it up accurately. Yeah, thank you.
So yeah, that'll really help with bringing more awareness to our community and building more of a dementia friendly community. So one of the other things that is going on in the dementia world is they are looking, the state is looking to have our assistance with putting out a survey so that we can get input from the community about the dementia programs and services that we've had. And so that's going to be factored into the upcoming state plan that they're developing for the 2024 to 2028 plan period. So I was just trained and they made up toolkits for the counties so that we have a means of putting out paper surveys, online surveys. We can set up and have some community conversations. So this is also something that's just kind of rolling out right now that we're going to be doing up through the end of the year, is just getting more input from people in the community about the dementia programs and things they'd like to see, what's working, what would be a benefit to us. So
with that in mind, you work with all the different and various law enforcement agencies in the county and educate them about dementia programs and dementia people. I mean, people that would have dementia, do you educate them about that too?
yeah, I have. This year, I did some training, and last year did some training. Becca has as well. So we do have a crisis response, kind of a dementia awareness training.
And do they kind of maybe collectively, maybe once a year, but not tonight, or whatever, whenever they get new hires, obviously they have to get trained in this. And I'm not saying you do this every time you get a new hire, but I think sometime during the year, they should be able to get trained on this, whatever, and then just because you get trained once, that would mean every couple of years, you might need a refresher just to
Yeah,
get be knowledgeable, and maybe maybe something new that they could know about. But that's good to hear, because I hear, that's one area, and dementia and people with that. I think law enforcement need to get educated about that, so that maybe they're dealing with a person with dementia, and maybe they won't, whatever action that person does doesn't necessarily mean that they will get locked up or put away or where they will be dealt in a different way.
absolutely. Yeah, and I know that there's just various, like the Oshkosh Police Department had recorded the dementia training that they had, and that also encompassed adult protective services and the crisis team. So we have kind of partnered to bring our education and awareness to the various law enforcement. So some of them have them recorded. Obviously, there's people that are newly being hired and leaving, so it's keeping up on all the training, and there's definitely turnover and things to consider. But yeah, that's been something that we've focused on in the past too, as well as the present. And the other thing, that Beth and I have talked about too is a lot of the things that we want to do with dementia in terms of, having much more of a presence in the community and building awareness, is having a coalition. So in the future, we're going to be working to develop a coalition for dementia in Winnebago County. So there's a lot of partners that we have where we're doing a lot of things together, but doing something a little bit more official where there's going to be some just more people we can reach, more businesses, and more of the community members. So that's something that we're looking at in the future to start developing that as well.
And one of the asks we have of this committee is to help us with the development of that coalition. So as we are working on that, we might be asking you if you know of anyone who might want to join us. We know some potential partners right now, but again, like Elisa said, as we continue to grow that, we're going to be asking you to help us identify other partners to join us.
Have you reached out to, and maybe you have, Alicia, the neighborhood associations? I mean, in this city, that's one group I would definitely reach out to, because, they may know people in their individual neighborhoods that a broader group may not know about. They may know about Mrs. Whatever, who's down the street, who, occasionally they think is wandering about, and I think that's very key. So if you haven't, I would try to get to them, and they have, neighborhood meetings. I know they have the neighborhood association as a whole group, and all of them together have one monthly meeting, and then obviously a number of them have committee or have meetings during the summer. I mean, I would think that's one group area. I don't know if there are other such groups in the Nina, Nash, and other areas, and obviously church groups, but yeah, I think that's one way to filter out. I think you have to get down to the grassroots and down to the neighborhood level. And they may know, like I say, that this couple or this person, maybe that person wanders off, maybe that person shouldn't be always by themselves, maybe they are by themselves, they know, they know about it, but nothing they've done about that. That goes with efforts about not just dementia, but help with our efforts to socialization. I think that's another thing effort if we get down to that level. So
I would think that clergy and office staff at the churches would know.
Yep, for sure. Can I also make a suggestion, Beth and Elisa, if you could do like a future meeting presentation on who you have reached out to date, because I suspect that will,
Oh, yeah.
definitely generate some questions and comments and feedback. Whether it's neighborhood associations or, churches or, whatever groups there are in the county.
I was also thinking that could be really beneficial for in-home caregivers too. And I mean,
Here.
you do so much intake, and I'm sure you see your fair share of situations that aren't ideal. And I think that would also be at the ground level, that would be a hugely help, or could be a hugely helpful thing.
So I think those were my major updates in the dementia world. Are there any other questions or comments?
Thank you, Elisa. Thank you for your service. Beth, you have some announcements to make. I want to
I
make a few.
do, and there's sad announcements for me. As you know, this committee serves as the Aging and Disability Resource as well as Aging Commission. And part of the statutes of the Aging Commission is that you can only serve 2 consecutive 3-year terms. So unfortunately, our friends Claire and Pete are on their 3rd terms. So I do have an acknowledgement, if you could pass this down maybe to Pete, and then Claire, I'll send yours in the mail, that that their terms are done. They are able to rejoin us after a year if they would like to do so. But and they are absolutely welcome to join our meetings as non-committee members, which means they would not be able to vote. But as far as being official committee members, the county executive will be appointing 2 new members.
I want to acknowledge Pete especially, and Claire as well. Your valuable service. I think Pete, for Winchester Lions Club, I had to go out there a few weeks ago to meet some of my own personal medical needs. What an inspiring operation. What an inspiring place for seniors. And my God, the level of services provided, is pretty spectacular. We're incredibly fortunate as a county, and please extend my greetings to the Winchester Lions people, on your behalf, because it's a remarkable operation. And thank you, also for your service. And Claire, thank you as well. You're a pretty strong advocate in your own quiet way, and I very much appreciate your comments, especially in Huntington's Korea. Thank you both.
Can a person replace Peter from that organization? Or that is more familiar with that?
I've been hinting around and getting nowhere. That's what you mean.
can I ask a question?
You haven't taken your 2x4 yet, Pete, to some of your colleagues and tell them this is good for you?
Can't do that.
I know you can't tell, Paul, but Mike wants to speak.
I have a couple questions on this matter. A, is the county executive got 2 appointments ready to take their place? That's my first question. And my second question is, what is the status of two of our members who have not shown up for a number of months? One being a fellow county supervisor who's never shown up, Supervisor Robinson, and the other being, he did show up in January, and then you said he was away. I've not seen him since then. I can't remember. He lives in my district, the guy in the wheelchair. What's the status of those two? I mean, I guess I'm more concerned more about the county board supervisor who's been appointed and didn't show up, because if he's not going to show up, and I think the county board supervisor has appointed someone, and I know one or two will be willing to serve on the board who should show up. And that's one, my two questions.
Yep.
Does he have someone in the pipeline the next Tuesday to nominate to replace at least two members? And what about the other members? That's my question.
I am not aware of anyone being appointed on Tuesday, that they have someone that close to being appointed. And I have reached out to the two members who haven't come. One of them I haven't actually ever connected with, the county board supervisor. I have never connected with, but I'm not hearing back from either one of them, and the county exec's office is aware of that.
And he's not done anything. Okay, I just wanted to, you know, because that. Especially, I know it's not you, I'll be the bad guy. I'll get on because that's, but you're on these committees to serve. We're kicking off two people who should be kicked off because they do serve, and that's why I'm making. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question. Several years ago, as I recall, I was in the same situation where some other people were. And at that time, the state statutes weren't very clear about it. And I believe some people only stayed off for a couple of months.
Good call, very good call, good memory. The state statute does not dictate how long a person has to be off the committee. It just says that you can serve 2 3 years consecutive terms. Our county exec's interpretation of being off the committee is that you have to be off for a term. So that's new, that's different.
Whatever one of us, like I mean, say, hey, you can correct it yourself if you're county exec. I'm willing to do that. If Pete and Claire, I'm willing to do that because we have two people who want to serve. Yeah, if he has other people in the pipeline, that's one thing, but we have no one. That's a whole different thing. So Pete and Claire, I'm willing to go back for them if you want me to. I think that's worth, yeah. So I don't want to get you in trouble, Val. I'll do that because I'm for sure.
Well,
Okay?
they have to go off anyway, so how about at next month's meeting, I will update whether there's new people and what's happening with the other two that haven't been attending and come up with a game plan, because nothing can happen right now.
I mean, to give you full disclosure, I thought we could have 3 county board members. And I asked Beth, and I thought Beth told me once we could. She corrected me. Somehow we can have, if we have less, we need more county board members. I don't get that. So I had someone and the county executive said, well, this one member who I thought, well, if he wants to be appointed as a member, he can. I don't think he can. That's one member, like I said, the one county board member who hasn't shown up for 3 months. He's never been here. He's a new supervisor. I think someone has to say, hey, if you don't want to be on it, let someone who does serve. And so I'm just being transparent that I have some people, and I don't mind who you nominate really, as long as they're here to serve. Nominate, so that's why, like I say, I'm willing to go to bat, stick my neck out for Pete, Claire, any one of you. If you're on this board, you obviously want here because you want to be, and not because you just threw you on it. So,
Mike, it is an odd thing that, you look at, it's in somewhere in your training manual about, it might be in the scope of
Right.
services, if you have 11, a committee of 11, you can have 3 county board supervisors. If you have a committee of 13, you can have 3. And if you have a committee of 12, you can have 2. Oddest thing in the world. It's in there, it's in the ADRC. I agree with you. It's very strange. If we have more or less people, and maybe we should go down to 11. Because, yeah, but
I mean, one way or another, I just think I'm not saying it's your rule, it's just a strange rule.
it is a very strange rule, but I confirm it is correct. And then Paul, Brian also would like to speak.
I just wanted to say, Pete and Claire, thank you for your time on this board. Hopefully, like Mike says, you can stay a little while longer. You've been productive as members, and I just want to thank you, Claire, You've held us accountable to how we're spending our caregiver funds, having been a caregiver yourself. I've always appreciated that. And Beth and I have talked about that multiple times about how you hold us accountable to how we're spending those monies out in the field, to help people in a situation like you were, to be honest. And I've always felt that that was very poignant, and I've appreciated your accountability to us. So thank you.
You, Brian.
Any other comments or remarks that need to be directed at Claire or at Pete
Or from them?
or from them? Good point, Beth. Thank you.
Well, this will be my last, I'm not gonna return, so I'll see if I can get somebody from the Lions Club, but I think that's been 3 terms, so. And then, I was here back when people you don't even know were here.
Yeah, Pete's been on and off a
Does
few
anybody
times.
remember Mary Hanson? Hello?
Yes,
Yeah. probably the only one.
I do remember, but
Yeah.
thank you again.
So, but yeah, no, I'm getting a little old for this stuff. It's ending up being a lot of driving and,
I have a
but thank you for all your foolish comments.
little different perspective for Pete. I mean, if you don't have someone from your organization, I think what you bring from perspective, and you and I think Jan, I think, is that you're from the rural part, what I call west of 41 area, which I think in a number of committees is lacking. So if you know people from Amarillo, Winnebago, Larson, that area, I think that's one thing. That's one thing this board can pride itself. We have people from Oshkosh, Nina, Menasha, the rural part, and I think that we should try to continue. So if not Pete, if not from Pete's organization, maybe Pete can find someone from his area. So that's very much needed, I think.
We do have 1 from Amarillo and 2 from Winnie County right now, and I did ask, I did talk to the county exec's office last week about what target group they need to represent, but also saying that we could utilize more, support from the west side of the Highway 41 and maybe the north side to kind of continue the representation that we have up until now.
Come on, Kate's feeling bad. She's less than 41 and
Yeah,
she's
so.
everywhere, so.
Tara, yeah, Tamara and we got a few of you. But I had asked that we try and keep the same demographics. if
Yeah.
possible.
Okay, Beth, do you want to start the conversation about committee priorities, please?
Yeah, so we have a lot of focus areas that we talk about. The dementia care updates are every 3 months. We do caregiver support updates, which normally would have been due this month, but I felt like we had a full agenda, so we can do that next month. We've had legislators here, so we have a lot of areas that we like to learn about and give input on, and what I would consider focus areas. A few meetings back, I think it was Harold that brought up the importance of having some priorities as far as areas that we might want to influence or have an influence on, and that we would have a discussion on what those priorities are for us to put some focus into. So I'll just kind of lay it out with that and then look for input about what you see in the next, say, 12 months would be as potential focus, priority areas, I should say, to have an impact on or influence on.
Is there something that you see lacking, Beth? Something that you think that we're missing?
Well, my biggest support, my biggest concern right now is what I call a caregiver crisis. We've got a tremendous caregiver shortage, and it's getting, I want to say, worse by the minute. It's horrible. And if every unemployed person in Wisconsin was to be employed, we would still have a shortage. So it's significant and has a lot to do with the baby boomer generation retiring, and then there was a blip in the birth rate, but the sheer numbers don't afford us enough caregivers. The impact on that is not only the individuals needing care, but also for families who are caring for someone in their home or any loved one. They don't then have the support that they need to continue. So that is a big area. I'm going to update when it gets to my update part about a grant to help influence that. I think anything we could do to help address the caregiver shortage would have a tremendous impact on the entire population we serve. We're an adult service, but it impacts our children's world also. So that would be my number one priority.
Thank you.
I have brought up this issue, because you already brought up a couple minutes ago, to the WCA, all the human service committee that I'm on, and on the NACO one. Both have said that you're very important, they should look into it. I brought up with the WCA, issue that Elizabeth brought about, not just, for the adults, but also for in her situation, about, how it's not easy for find children, to look over children, and they kind of not forgot, that's wrong phrase, but they think it's very important. So I think if I keep with the pressure, hopefully the WCA look at this. And I think we have to keep the pressure and have the legislature look at it, because it's a statewide crisis, it's a national crisis, obviously, because the NACO said, yeah, we've heard a number of our states have this crisis. And I think we should keep on pushing this item, because it's not going away.
And I think as you're doing that, Mike, make sure that you're clear, not that I want us to take second seat, but some of what the state's working on is assisting with the hiring process of staff within the counties. And again, that's important. We've got a vacancy that we've had for a while, and I'm concerned about our own hiring here, but it's almost secondary to the actual direct care staff. So as you're advocating for that, make sure that the state is clear, or WCA is clear, that you're not just talking about hiring social workers, you're talking about caregiver agencies and caregiver
Well,
support.
that's what I'm thinking too, that's what our survey went out to, right? I mean, they only got 14, remember, how long we have in this county, but yeah, that's who I would be talking, yeah. I think we all know, we know the public shortage there is at any county or any state level. I think, yeah, I think this is the private sector is really affected greatly too, and that has to be addressed too.
Well, and just yesterday on the way home from the airport, passed by Mercury Marine, they're offering $22 an hour, and they can't find staff either. So
Here,
it does come down to pay. I mean, you have to pay people to do the work. They're doing very difficult work. With
I
a high
talked to
burnout.
Yeah, I met with the lady about this grant this morning, and her agency is now up to $17 to $18 an hour starting. And they give a $500 bonus if you can refer someone who stays for at least 3 months. I think that's pretty tremendous. If they can't, they had to hire someone just for recruiting. They have a lot of people who accept the job, don't show up, start work a day, don't show up, schedule an interview, don't show up. But you're right, Kate, it's all over, and businesses are closing because of it. Paul and Mike and I talked about how with our housing study, we know that there's a shortage of assisted living beds, but no provider is going to open up another assisted living right now when they can't staff what they have. So we need to get really, really creative, and it's about pay. It's about really elevating this as a career, making this a desirable career to work in. So yeah, pay is one thing, but we have to get creative and try and figure things out and how to address this.
Well, I know it's a different conversation for another time, but creative incentives could be education to help you reach the next level. We're doing the same thing a lot of other places are doing, but this is a critical thing. I think most people don't even hear about. You don't see this on the news.
you're here.
And
I think I can jump in. Go ahead, Liz.
well, I've said this before, so this won't come as a surprise to anyone who's been on the committee for a while, but there are many, many cultures around the world that elevate people who work with our elderly and our disabled and consider them to be top careers. And we need to consider welcoming people from other cultures
Right.
who will come and want these jobs. And they're not just looking at the hourly, they consider it an honor. And I just think we have to keep thinking about that. And I've said it before, but I mean, I teach intercultural communication. So my students do these reports and they're always shocked because they are always so surprised at how other cultures view serving the elderly especially, but also people with disabilities. So.
I totally agree. And again, that's a potential area for us. I think we need to be creative about the positions in terms of there may be people who are either young parents or on the other end of the spectrum, sort of fading out of their career that want part-time, and some places offer part-time and some don't. So we just being as creative as we can. I'm going to jump into grant opportunity. I was going to talk about later, but it's pertinent to this. The state is offering it's a home and community-based service grant, and it's very, excuse me, applicable to this. So I'm looking at partnering with, this would be for our children's services and all of our adult services. I'm looking at partnering with Lakeland Care District, one of our care management organizations, and Covey, one of our providers who have the same interest. Excuse me. Too much talking. To enhance our workforce by working with an agency called ERN USA. And what they do is, I think it's ERH. Anyway, it's a company that helps build the workforce by developing a peer mentoring. So people that are new to the workforce would have a peer to help them get their footing in this, because it's hard work. We all acknowledge this is hard work. And where's the support for the employees when they struggle? Another thing that it would help focus on is what I'm going to describe as essentially a care manager or social worker that for the staff. So an example would be a lady who took a job with an agency. She had somebody who, let me think.
Yeah.
One of her family members passed away. Another family member got cancer. She had a fire. I mean, she had like 4 pretty horrific things happen to her, and she's struggling to keep her job. And who's helping her to make sure she's got housing, and who's helping her to make sure she's got transportation? Basic care needs come above, you want to look long-term. It's like, yeah, I need to keep my job so I can keep all this other stuff, but there's so many things that pull us in so many different directions. So it's also sort of I'm going to call it kind of a care manager, case manager for the staff. So when they run into glitches, what would help them so that their employment isn't affected by it? There's 4 different prongs to it, and I don't want to get into great detail because I just started talking about it this morning, and I'm scheduled to go to a couple meetings about what our grant would look like. But it would be a 2-year project with some sustainability built into how to build the workforce. And it's pretty exciting. I think it's going to be a much needed service for agencies and for staff, and it's kind of hot off the presses, I guess.
Is there a component to get upstream and get into the schools to introduce this to kids before they get out into the workforce? It's kind of like they rang the alarm bell when my kids were in high school of the huge shortage of tradespeople. And so there have been more people going into the trades. Are we ringing the alarm bell in schools saying this is an honorable career? This is something that that you should consider? And
Yeah,
to
there's
bring
a
it out?
program called Pathways. So
I'm sorry?
sorry.
I didn't hear what
There's
you
a
said.
program called Pathways, and then the closest one to us is in Little Chute.
Okay.
And is a program where high school students get experience and it's basically experience in different fields. And there's a healthcare pathways career that impacts us. When I started to research more about that, COVID hit. And so I talked to 2 different high schools, and then it became really hard for schools to give experience in situations and facilities where people were masking and it just got to be kind of a mess, but now we're starting to move back into that. So yes, there's a program out there to encourage this, but it kind of took went through a little lull that they're just bouncing back from now.
Unfortunately, with a lot of other things like that as well.
But again, that's something, should we take this on, we could help promote that in our local high schools. Why don't you have a pathway program? The guy from Little Chute, I asked if they focus specifically on our aging population or dementia or anything like that. And he said no, but they would be very interested in that. There's also a program that maybe Elisa could update us on in 3 months that focuses on kids learning more about dementia. It's a statewide program that's coming out. So we're trying to expose our youth to this as a career and as a helping.
Beth, is there any?
For everything you're doing.
What's that?
I said, thank you for everything that you're doing.
Amen to that.
Absolutely.
One of the things that I'm concerned about is when we talk about a problem like this, we talk about people up here will be supervising people down here, and we just keep pulling more and more people up here where they're not taking care of people, but they're down. Every time we hire a social worker who is up here planning a program, they're not down here taking care of people. Every time we hire, a committee or we get somebody to look into hiring people, we'll hire somebody to hire people. They're a potential worker that, could be doing something, but they're not. They're up here getting more people, trying to get more people. We're gonna have 10 people on the top trying to get people to work, but or to take care of people, but they just aren't here.
You're correct in that. It's kind of a upside down system in that way.
Yeah.
Without getting philosophical about what certain people make that are talented at sports or acting or whatever versus what people make in this field. I remember probably 30 years ago going to a conference and the keynote speaker was phenomenal, but I'll never forget her saying that people who take care of animals in zoos make more than people who take care of people.
People take care
So animals in the zoo
of.
get paid more than people who take care of people. And that was 30 years ago. It's, probably not the same, but this as a priority in our country needs to shift.
Right.
So this Pathways program, you have contacts in the Ashbel schools, because I'm telling you, Beth, this sounds like an interesting, good program. I mean, 2 of my members are on school boards. I know school members in a couple other communities. And you probably know people in those administrations. I think we need to get this started. If not just one, but more. I mean, I'm willing to, and maybe you are, if Armor, Winnebago, Needham, Ashbel, all of them, because it feeds. We all need caregivers. Believe me, I'm on the Berkeley community meeting. We have 39 openings. We need, we're this September, we're opening a facility to help train new people. I mean, talk about, the need for it. Here we have the need. We have the facility to meet the need. Now we have to get the young people, or otherwise who want to do it, because you're right. It has to be, something has to be done. And you're right, Pete, you don't need a supervisor. We need more down the grassroots level. We need to do that. We have to start someone to attract them. So I'm all supportive of that.
I'm gonna jump in and say we definitely still need more caseworkers and social workers. I mean, the crisis is there also. If we overload the people who provide service and support and get rid of barriers for the workers who are in the field and on the ground, then if we lose them, we lose it further down too. I completely agree with everything you've said, but I just want you to know I think it's a crisis on many levels. But
Myra's got a question.
Yeah, a couple years back, in order to be a nurse, you had to sign up to be a CNA for a certain amount of time. I don't know if the commitment was 6 months or a year or something like that, but I wonder if that could be extended to other professionals who are going to be working with people like physical therapists, occupational therapists, speech therapists. Maybe if they would work the way nurses did in college, that would open up a few more workers as well.
Yes, that's a very good idea. Yeah.
I have 3 granddaughters who are now 22, 23, and 24. And all 3 came through that route. They took their CNA while they were still in high school, started working as CNAs mostly in long-term care facility, assisted living, etc. at about 17. And the youngest of those 3 is still working as a CNA, but in the hospital. And, I guess it gives somebody, say, age 17 to 22, about 5 years of a workforce in order to.
It does. Unfortunately, one of the negative impacts of our whole workforce that we need to roll into this is that with a place like Parkview, when they're so short-staffed, that someone in high school who takes on a part-time job there is looking for, say, 20 hours a week, and they're getting called in at 4 a.m. to report to work at 6, and they're having to stay an extra 3 hours because someone didn't show up and work on the weekend that they thought they had off. We're burning them out. So somehow we need some big shifts.
Beth, is there any clearinghouse, if you will, that's regionally based, that either state sponsors or county-based ADRC sponsors that meets with providers? I know Suponic, who was the United Way director, used to convene a group of individuals, different agencies, to talk about, combining, say, food pantries, or how to deal with, the immigration challenges that some of our citizens were facing. Is there something like that that's occurring by either providers or by folks like yourself?
Yeah, there used to be, and there isn't anymore, and that would be one of the three or four prongs of this grant that I'm talking about. It would
Okay.
be convening people together as a provider system.
Okay.
One of the other things that I don't see getting addressed is you talk to older caregivers, they get nasty backs. This job is hard on people. And
Amen to
they
that.
don't stick around until they're 65 because the backs give out. And then you try to collect on any kind of disability or something like that for a back that's not working anymore. And everything goes up. There's all kinds of things that get in the way of that getting that disability. I can think of a half a dozen people who are out of the business just because they can't lift people anymore and try to get this. Well, you have to tell exactly the time that your back went out. Well, yeah, 15 times a day it went out, but
So it sounds like caregiver.
It's not only the physical problems, it's also the mental and emotional.
Thank you. Amen.
I did that kind of work for this one time, and I know it's like,
Yeah,
Oh,
you're
yeah.
absolutely right.
it's tough.
We have one agency that we contract with who just hired a position, and I don't remember the title, but it is a position who basically, kind of along the lines of a care manager for staff, processes things with staff. So when something happens with one of the people that they serve, they process it with that incident with that person that they serve. Now they have a person who processes it with the staff. How are you doing? How did this impact you? That person can say to a staff, I think you need to take tomorrow off. Well, no, I can't afford to take tomorrow off. It's with pay. You need a day off. So it's really looking out for the staff, and we increased our rate of that we're paying them so that they could bring on this position that I think is much needed.
Any other questions or comments? Or it sounds like this should be a ongoing conversation for next month's meeting as well.
And so maybe we could start to talk about specifically what we want to do, like with Jan's idea of looking at some of the different populations of people who are here as a workforce, and Mike's idea, or whoever, Kate, I think started it with looking at our what's the feeder sources into this, and then some of the other things that each of you talked about that adversely affect our caregiver amount of people, so, we could maybe start talking about what we'd like to see happen.
Okay.
Maybe I'll know more about the grant by then, hopefully I would, actually, I should.
And so to do this grant, you have to go through the human service board, the county board to get it. And
No, because I'm not gonna be the one receiving it, I'm too smart to do that.
yeah, what-
If I'm not the recipient of it, no, I don't have to go through that,
who's the
so,
recipient of it? Who
um,
do we help? to get
probably
this?
Lakeland, either Lakeland or Covey, so we would benefit from it. But because the money isn't coming to us, I don't have to go through those.
All right, so much for, okay. Beth, you want, as long as you're, you want to give yourself a break and have Brian or Nicole talk about what's happening in their respective areas. I'll make an executive decision. Brian, would you
I knew that was coming.
I did too.
Busy in our world. I feel like I should make a sign and hold this up every week, month that we come to this meeting, but we recently had a retirement. Beth Beesinger retired from our team after 32 years of service at the county. So that was a week ago today. We've been blessed to be able to backfill her position with someone who was already in-house, Kayla Ross, who had been working in a dual role as APS, Adult Protective Services, as well as an ADRC assistant. But now the position that Beth alluded to before is the backfill of that position has been difficult at best to hire. So have a little bit of difficulties there, but we'll get through it. As far as busyness in our world, I usually give you a report of kind of some numbers. We approved 35 packets to go to Family Care and Iris. That's actually down a little bit, probably about 10 packets. But I did note that there's 128 charted documentation on functional screening. So I imagine that number is going to go up considerably next month. That's just kind of how it goes. Sometimes getting people hooked up with family care and the medical assistance part of it takes more than a month. So I think it's just explainable that way. One of the things that I did note that was a little, I'm interested in what time we're spending on housing with each person and what time we're spending with a number of customers that are homeless or are at risk of becoming homeless. And that number has increased considerably, even over the last month. For the month of July, we had 122 different charted calls for 31 unduplicated customers that said that housing was an issue for them, housing of some sort. And we have a specific call topic that's called homelessness or at risk of being homeless. And that number was 58 calls for 8 different customers. So that's up, it's about double from the month before. I presume that we actually have higher numbers than this, to be honest. I just don't feel like everyone's maybe always charting it consistently that way. But yeah, that's a big focus of what we're doing. A lot more when I analyzed the data this morning for our monthly export to the state, just noting that so much more financial referrals for financial help to different programs, that all of those types of things are up considerably in our work, and that's what we kind of expected. But the data kind of proves that a little bit.
It's financial, meaning they can't meet expenses to either the mortgage or to keep up their home. Is that what they're talking about? Or this can't, they can't, okay. I mean, again, I was gonna ask you the broader question. Can you dig deeper and more? I mean, housing is a cost, is it because they think they have too much space and you want to go to a smaller home? Is what I call accessibility, meaning, they have a 2 or more story home and they can only live on 1 story because they're bad and even. I mean, maybe you don't get that. Yeah, that's what I like to do.
I don't want to generalize, but I think a lot of evictions, a lot of rent going up considerably at apartment buildings. And quite honestly, I've been filling in a little bit as we've been a little short staffed. And so I had a 85-year-old lady who was homeless, and just helping her to search a little bit for apartments, called some people in the community. there's little to nothing available, and the common wisdom is that a lot of people have sold homes, done really well, made a lot of money selling their homes. They are now living in apartment buildings because they can't afford or don't want to afford at this high cost time to go buy another house. So the market is completely saturated, so yes, all of the above. But predominantly eviction type things and things that are of more emergent need is what our staff is seeing, so.
Okay. Thank you, Brian. Nicole?
Sure. So we had 2 interns who had been here since February, and they finished up last week. So that was very exciting. They had come a long way working with us, and been really helpful. And we have 2 new interns starting next month. Specifically, one that Brian and I are kind of excited about. We have an intern who only wants to work with the elderly, and it's very few and far between. So Brian and I worked really hard at doing different interviews and trying to figure out a way that we can cultivate him so that we can cultivate a career with him in working with the elderly in some capacity, since that's what his passion is. And one of the projects what we've learned from our last interns is we're gonna have them start on projects right away and build projects. So they have one project throughout their whole internship, along with learning different things. But one of his one focus on his project, and the 2 current interns worked with me on this, is housing. So he's gonna work on building relationships with landlords who maybe are willing to make adjustments to homes to allow people to live there longer, who want to age in place. He's gonna work on finding places that will rent to people with evictions or criminal histories, and also learn how to do all the different types of paperwork so that he can, what we find a lot is that sometimes people lack housing because they lack the ability due to mental health, lack of basic needs, the follow through, and calling and answering and sitting down and actually filling out the paperwork and making sure that that person filled it out correctly and got it to the right person. Housing applications with the housing authority are not really that easy to do, because you have to have the ability to follow up and call and see where you're at and make sure you have an address that they can send something to you. So really having a person, and he'll be here from September until May to kind of learn that and hopefully transition to it to another intern and be able to help our help program when that comes, will be really a big deal for us if we can really get some interns to be really passionate about it. So that's really exciting. And Elisa and I and Beth have something really exciting. I don't know who else, if anyone else is doing it, but on the 15th, August 15th, we are working at Pizza Ranch to raise money for our Alzheimer's walk. So if anybody would like to see us hard at work at Pizza Ranch, feel free to come on in.
Weekly, right? Right?
Yeah,
What is the address for it?
for Pizza Ranch, that's a good question.
And what?
It's on Washburn.
And at what time should we promote this?
5 to 8, 4 to 8.
Brian, you're sending someone emails on Facebook, you have to promote this.
We
okay?
have it on,
You do? Oh, I don't know, I don't want you. Okay.
I think Nicole hit on
and
something.
it's on our,
Okay.
sorry, it's also on our
Right.
calendar in your. 1051 South Washburn Street.
Yep, thank you.
I was just gonna interject with the internships. I think that's really exciting because that's kind of doing what Jan talked about with the CNA. Essentially, I think we need to rethink like internships, because not only are they potentially interviewing for us, I think we're interviewing for them. We've kind of talked as a management group lately about, man, if we could just tell them what good work this is and what a fun atmosphere we have here. We can't get off the ground with that, but if we have someone here for I 6-8 months, they can get an understanding of who we are.
Brian, you're gonna tell my, I hope that this whole county does more. I hope this county reaches out internships or high school to where and get them, okay, in the school year, they come in for an hour or two and they learn what to do. And maybe by the end of the school year, in the summertime, you can maybe hire them and give them full time. I guess I'm going, health department, how many, right, what's it called? AmeriCorps, is that right? It's called AmeriCorps. I mean, I know Lindsay Erickson came from that program. That's how you get them here for, I don't know how long they're here for that program. You get them here for that time, you learn, and when opening comes, you hire them, and you have them very, very good people for a long time. That's what we have to cultivate. Get them in, hey, get them to learn how to do this now. Maybe they can't commit to 8-10 hours a week. Whatever you give them, if you can somehow find it, Beth, and whoever, this whole department, every department, we should try to do that. It's other counties do it around the country. And like I said, you start off in the school year, you learn about it by the end of the school year, in the summer, they name the word part-time. That's, and then when they get graduated from high school and college, they'll come back. That's what we have to hold on with. Thank you, Brian.
Okay.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
Yep. Anything else, Nicole?
Oh, that's it.
Alana?
Hello, not too many updates from public health. In terms of our promoting healthy aging programming, classes are really picking up and Joanne is really busy. It's a good busy, but she's not being quite able to be strategic because right now we have a very, very low number of leaders. With COVID, WIHA was kind of ridiculous about their requirements and upping the trainings, and you're required to train every so often, and so pretty much all of our leaders lapsed. And so we have to pay for recertification from the beginning, plus the leaders have to make time in their schedules for this, plus we're still feeling the COVID vaccine need for our nurses. So it's a little difficult. She's really excited because we put an ad in the newspaper and she has interest in more volunteers to be leaders. It's getting them into the training, getting that situated, building relationships, teaching them how to do the class, and hopefully 2023 will look better for her. But on that, so the Wellness Plus Coalition really hasn't had a lot of activity. It needs leadership, it needs organization, it needs more structure that Joanne doesn't have in 24 hours a week besides her teaching. So it really hasn't met formally. Megan Pauley from the city of Menasha, those two were co-chairs, and Beth Roberts is the accountant. So they're keeping up on the paperwork management side of things, but without new classes having leaders, they haven't met as a group. So that's our big plans for 2023 is reestablishing that coalition, finding buy-in from other organizations that would at least be willing to do some of that coalition work. Because right now, I think Joanne kind of just feels like she's doing it by herself. It's not going anywhere. So,
one of the things that we've talked about, and I know it's happening, is like Nicole's got some efforts through the designation of us being an age-friendly community, trying to combine some of the committees, because we've got the Oshkosh Aging Committee, we've got the, healthy living, and we've got, again, some of what Nicole's doing. So just trying to look at how we can combine some of these committees so that rather than me pick which of the three I want to join, maybe I join one that addresses two different needs. So I think that'll maybe be something we can help with.
great. I'm in the same boat. I'm like, why are there like 10 different aging meetings? But yet when it comes to the children and the younger, tend to collaborate more on those. So I'll give her that good news. But that has been one of the places where Joanne has been able to connect. She still goes to the Oshkosh Committee on Aging, and then we make sure that Lori does Nina. So as we come to these meetings, that's where we're sharing updates on all this fun stuff. With the public health referrals, we are taking them again. Our nurses are doing home visits, which is really exciting, but also terrifying. We hope that this fall is really busy with COVID pediatric vaccines, but you never know until it gets started. There's a lot of requests from schools and more satellite sites. which is best for getting it to the people to be most convenient where they are. That takes a lot of planning, a lot of work. So we're starting parent resource hours instead of doing more home visits for young children, because a lot of times those mothers or fathers really only need a phone call or a video call to talk through something, whereas the older adults need more hand-on medical help. So we're switching our young child referrals, if we get one of those runners, to more of a resource hours that we'll host here in Oshkosh and once in Neenah every month. So we're just kicking those up and trying to find some money and partners to make them kind of like an open house for us, where any type of parenting question, WIC question, you need a car seat, you need safe sleep, it'd be like that. We officially did have our first monkeypox case announced today, so it's in Winnebago, which we knew it would, and it's not a major threat. Most of the population shouldn't be fairly concerned, but if you know or work with someone that's noticing a weird rash, like, have it checked out. Because it can last to some pain and scarring, but it takes very close contact to transmit monkeypox, so it's not likely something you're gonna pick up at the grocery store or come into a meeting. Let's hope. I think that's it. Oh, the fall kits that the Finding Balance Together Coalition plan to use with a grant they got from the Ladies Benevolent Society. Those have been all ordered and put together. Joanne's taking them to classes to hand out. We're bringing them to the ADRC open house next week. So 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whenever I'm coming on the right day. So that's all for us.
Thank you. Beth, do you want to? Yeah, I'll give you some more time.
Just, yeah, I was gonna talk about the grant, which I've already talked about. The resource directory for 2023 is going to be sent to printing this week. Takes a lot of work, and one of Beth Beasley, who retired, and one of our assistants here is just put a tremendous amount of work in it, but that's going off for printing. Brian mentioned the APS ADRC position, so if you know of anyone looking for work, please send them to the Winnebago County Direct website for our employment opportunities, because we're looking for somebody. And then Nicole talked about our HELP, which is the homeless eviction and loss prevention program that we received a grant for to address housing stability. And Brian also talked about the immense number of calls we're getting for people with housing instability. I did get approval, and I could jump out of my chair for excitement to hire the supervisor for that position. So that position, it's not already on our website, is soon going to be posted, and we can start getting rolling with assistance, big assistance to help us with housing stability. That's it.
For what stability?
Housing.
Housing.
So there's a lot of programs to address homelessness, like once someone is already homeless. This program is to work with housing instability, and so I can talk more about what my intent is, but today's kind of, I'll put it on my next agenda.
Is that,
Some other,
is that talking about the housing, the ADRC like housing thing that you're supposed to come up with because the grant we got from the
Yes,
state?
the neighborhood grant, the 10.3 million that our county received to address things with people with physical disabilities, mental health, our warming shelter, there's a fourth, oh, the tiny houses for families, and then this is the fifth part of that big grant. And those are all for people who are already homeless. This again is to address people who are not homeless, but we want to keep them from getting homeless.
could we talk about that in either next month or October, please?
Absolutely. It's all in my head right now, but I could spiel out everything I got in there about
Thank
it.
you.
So
Thank you. Harold, anything?
I have no update, Paul.
Okay, Rob,
Update, well, there is voting tomorrow. It's
Right.
a primary. Other than that, I can't think of much.
okay. Pete,
Batch of stuff as always. We've got an incredible increase in the amount of business we're getting out there. We've gone from maybe 15 or 20 at a visit the last 2 Saturdays ago, we had 42 sales, equipment going out. It's just incredible. Some of the things that are affecting that are one, post-COVID. I can get my surgery done. I can get this done. I can go, I'm not afraid to go in. But also, problem with insurance priorities because their insurances aren't covering as much anymore. And Medicare is already ran out of money. Well, not ran out, but being very stingy with it. So, if you want it, need it, you've got to go find some way to get it. We're also getting a tremendous number of hospital referrals. People that don't know anything about the patient, but I'm supposed to find a bed for this guy or a big wheelchair or this. Okay, how much do they weigh? I don't know. It just, and still the same problem of call me back and then the number that they give is the number for the hospital and no way to connect with the person that gets there. So anyhow, lots of business. The shortages we've never had before. Small wheelchairs. I've always had lots of small wheelchairs and no big chairs. Now I've got 3 24-inch wheelchairs and not a single 16 anywhere. I don't know what's going on. We sent another 16-foot trailer down to grain train loaded with supplies for mostly, I guess, Ukraine right now. But that makes 5 this year, so that would be the equivalent of almost 2 railroad cars worth of equipment going out. That's excess to what I've got place to store. Staffing, I got great volunteers. I think I've said that before, but I just can't repeat it enough. I got people who could take my place in a heartbeat and do a whole lot better job. I'm thinking about it. I notice around here, a lot of people that haven't been out to see us yet. And I really recommend that you come out sometime just to see what we're doing. Just because I'm going off the committee and that's my last farewell is goodbye. But you can give me a call if you've got a couple of you that want to go. Rob said he'd like to go again. So if somebody does want to go and see what the place is like. Another way, I talked about the medical locker, but we also make a handicap ramp. So, and we've made almost 1,300 of them. So, it's quite a, we're pretty proud of it. Oh, by the way, this isn't signed. How can I use that for a job referral if it's not signed?
I reprinted it on other paper and I didn't sign it.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you all. I've enjoyed being on this committee.
Bless you
Thank
for
you,
all the
Pete.
work you do.
God bless.
Thank you, Pete.
God bless. Claire?
Thank you, Pete.
I thought you were a photographer. You Liz. We always go like this.
I'm making a heart with my hand.
All right.
Claire,
That's all I've got.
are you still there, Claire?
It's been a true honor to work with all of you, and I've truly enjoyed it, and I want to thank all of you for the unbelievable work that you do every single day. It's just amazing to me. And all of the fires you are trying to put out in at one time. But again, thank you all so very much.
Thank you
Thank
again.
Claire.
You're Claire.
Jan,
Nothing.
Kate,
I don't have anything else.
you're not going to visit us with your travel experiences to Alaska?
It was phenomenal. I would highly recommend Alaska to anybody.
Okay. Liz,
Nothing to report.
and Mike?
Yes, a couple of things. First of all, I'm holding up a book. I went to the NACO conference and this speaker, Mick Evelyn, amazing speaker. He is the founder of Not Impossible Labs. And the title of the book is The Art of Doing What Couldn't Be Done. What's amazing about this guy by trade is a commercial producer. That's what he made for a living. Somehow he got into the business of the lab of solving problems for people. For example, he started with an artist who could not draw because he was handicapped, severely handicapped. His mom, he found how he could paint with his eyes. That was one thing. And what you see on the cover here is a hand. And what is one of the biggest things he's known for is he found out in Africa that what people would do, who were taken over by warlords, and that they would cover themselves in trees. Well, their body would be intact, but the shrapnel would destroy their arms. He found to create an artificial hand. Amazing thing. Another thing amazing, he has found out how to make sound where you can feel it. And he's been able to, people with Parkinson's, was able to control it so they had no more shakes. This is an amazing guy. He says, don't tell him what he can't do. He says what needs to be done, he finds a way to do it. Nick Eberly was an amazing thing. Also, when I was there in Adams County, they have the most amazing modern human service building. They have a building where I think for workers related, because they have an on-site workout place on-site. They have an on-site place where like cafeteria. An amazing other thing that they have is that they have their own thrift shop in the basement. You don't have to send, hey, I was thinking when Pete was talking about the wedding college, they said there for if you had a family who needed something, you don't have to say, oh, you gotta go to Goodwill, or you have to go to St. Vincent. They have a shop right in the basement of their place. It's amazing. It's a modern place. I think this, I know Bill Tobel was there. He was totally impressed. I was impressed by the workout center. I was impressed with what they had in this facility, and they had two of them. And yes, this county is about the size of Dane County, which is twice, 2-3 times our size, but that was amazing. Very interesting. Like I said, this book and that tour was amazing. Lastly, this afternoon or this night, I'm going to amend it. We had to change this meeting to be a hybrid meeting because we have a rule that we can't have. We can have a hybrid meeting, but we have this rule that you can't participate fully if you're not at the meeting directly. And I'm going to try to change that. That's not me, but other committees because this committee is mostly made of citizens. Other committees are made of citizens, and how can you make them have the same standard? I think the committee chairman of the board who made it where you have to be. You can zoom into me, you just can't vote at the same meeting, because I think it's okay for county board meetings, but other meetings, I think you have to have a little flexibility. That's one thing that I think we're gonna try to change. That this committee is the first time we met in person since January of 2020, I believe, right, Beth?
That's correct.
Some people like the virtual option, some people don't. I don't really care. That's not my, like I told you before, I think this is the only thing that's come out good of COVID is we learn how to use the virtual option. And I think if someone wants to, if for whatever reason they have to be virtual and they want to fully participate in vote and whatever, they will do that. And that's what I'm gonna try to do. And it probably won't happen. If it does happen, it won't happen next meeting, county board meeting. So that's one thing. And lastly, I just want to, I heard Brian and Beth talking to the homeless and people. There is a situation on Facebook. There has been a woman, maybe you've heard about, who's been on the bus stop.
She's not homeless.
Not homeless, you know what I'm talking about. And I was this close to say, so I contact Human Services to at least, you contact and bring the police to contact, but it isn't, that's the concern. I mean.
She's not homeless.
Thank you. I always thought the city of Oshkosh would send someone there at least, hey, this doesn't look very good to have someone this living there. And I saw her a couple of times, that's, with a big cooler and things, but okay, thank you, Beth. That's all I have. Thank you.
Any other comments or remarks?
Mike, can you pass the book round?
Oh,
I gotta leave.
Oh,
Okay, bye, thank you again. So for next month's meeting, we'll talk more about the caregiver focus.
please.
We'll get an update on the caregiver support program that we fund and in terms of numbers and whatnot. And then we'll also talk about the next meetings in terms of location. They'll all be hybrid, but exactly how we want to play that out.
I have one more thing, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank this woman right here, Beth Roberts, because we had another extremely successful wheelchair wash. You should be proud of yourself. Really, kind of cloudy, but you know what? We made it through that day. I think we had another great time. You know, we didn't have the county executive, we had the DA, we had what, how many people did we have?
I don't have it in front of me, but it was another record, you know, it was a lot more than we realized, because there was a lot of walkers and different pieces of equipment coming through, so it was a good number.
We had people asking how to help them further and other things. I think it's another success. And I think this lady should get a lot of credit, really. Beth Roberts, I want to thank those who did show up and the continued support, because I think it's a little small thing, but I tell you, it's making a big difference. And I think we all used to be proud, Beth Roberts.
It was awesome. It
Yeah,
was very
it was,
awesome.
you know?
Yeah, Harold, Brian, lots of us were there. It was a good event. Thank you, Mike.
Okay, any other questions or comments or remarks? I think we'll call ourselves then adjourned, and we'll see you all next month.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks,
Thank
Paul.
you for the rest of your summer.
You too. Bye.